Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name is Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. And welcome to video number 57 of the virtual stone carving apprenticeship. Okay, I went ahead, we'll break in here in a minute, move the crane. I want to talk a little bit about these suction booms and just show you something that's a concern or consideration and why a lot of them didn't survive. So check this out. Booms, they're old Rumlin, and they're really great. Let me show you just a little bit. This is an old one. This is one that I hadn't restored yet. I hung them up to balance the trunk, and it just has the correct hose and then the chute end, like this one here that I use. And the problems with these trunks is that they project out into the studio, and that's not a problem until the crane goes by. If you got a big bridge crane that's running back and forth, it's got a stone that weighs hundreds or thousands of pounds swinging on it, and by the time you say, whoa, put on the brakes and slow down, they get hooked up in these and they tangle them up and they turn them into spaghetti and they're junk. So when I'm moving my simple gantry crane, because I just have a basic crane with two hoists, like I said, but when I'm moving it to get it oriented where I want, like right now I need this section here to reach the base because we're fixing to turn the base on the side. So I got to move them around and make sure everything fits and squeezes by so nothing gets bent or deformed, because they get busted and there's, you have to rebuild them. I put metal ends on it. These earlier Rumlin booms have got ballast on them. They've got a big old chunk of cast iron. Sometimes they've just got some scrap. There's no telling what people put on them. The later ones, like Gary had at Celestial, have actually got several springs to counterbalance to provide the tension and the ballast, because they don't have this sticking out. It makes them a little nicer, but they're really hard to find because they hadn't made these for, oh boy, I bet they hadn't made these booms since the 50s or 60s, when this business was still active. And those were the high-tech ones. These are the old ones. These are probably, several of these came out of one of the old sheds in Elberton. They're probably 100 years old at this point. They're close to it. I'm sure they came 40s, if not, they might have been in the 50s, but they were probably in the 40s. And then these, I put the steel pipe on them for the lower half just to have less hose, because they support a little bit better and you get more use out of your hose. So I'll show you that. But that's why the suction booms get wrecked, is because they get caught on the crane. So I go slow motion here so I can be a little more careful. Back to the stone. I went ahead and moved the crane so we could turn this base up on edge. This vertical face right here is the top, okay? And we've got this edge back here, this face back here, that this is what was considered to be the joint. And you can see where I've marked it and how much stone we've got from this edge. Now down here, I measured it. And this is something you got to keep track of. We're gonna break all this in, so the integrity of this edge isn't critical like it would be on a typical die, where this edge would be sawed to perfection all the way around. Because this is going to be pitched, it doesn't have to be perfect. But down on this far end, putting the tape on, and I was like, man, this is measuring up really weird, because those are above. Down here, I've got some breakage, and I've lost, you can see where there's a fair amount of corner knocked off there, which isn't a problem, but when I measure, the tape was hooking right here and not right here, and so I was having a pretty big discrepancy. So what we're going to do first, I'm going to go ahead and mark a square and sink a couple things, and we'll rough this off, saw this off rough down to this 4'2", just to get it into shape. And this is our big cracked area that we're doing with listening for the crack and how you can hear it, because crack. See, over here. So the crack runs into this area in here and then stops. It probably will meet with this. So what I'll probably end up doing is I'll get on here and I'll dry this off really hard. We'll push that this way and try to waste a lot of this off first, because I can wring my hands and think and do all I want. But if this crack gets deep in here, I may have to shift this dimension of the 2.4 on. I may have to go a little bit down and do 2.3 instead to pick that up. So I want to get rid of this hump and get down to where it's pretty solid before I worry about any of this other stuff, because it just doesn't make any sense. Now, I don't know if I can get this on camera, but I'm going to give it a try. My bigger concern is that it's going to blow off and break my my cheap camera. I had to buy some pencils today. They cost $1 a piece, so I got to order pencils off of somewhere else. But we'll see if we can get some pictures of breaking this. Hear that? I got rid of part of it. Now see, that's a good indication right there, because this doesn't have the nice flat right there that it did. Let's see. See, that's really holding right there. So we've still got some crack working. I'm going to get the saw out. Be back in a minute. Now the goal with this is I can leave some mess, but I want to stay above where the crack ends, because I can come down here on the joint and push this and clean this all off. But what I want to do is I want to end this crack before it travels deep into the joint. It comes way down underneath here. So I'm going to keep on working on it and we'll be back. Okay, I think I'm in a good spot. This will work or it won't. Okay. I'm going to put a flat right here. That's a lot of strong. Now see, that's almost exactly even with this 2'4" dimension that we proved. Okay? So we're in good shape. So you see, this is all pretty solid right here. So now we can go ahead and we know this was the most treacherous spot here. And so I'll get my dimensions figured out here and make sure we've got a, if we're 4'2" or whatever, 2'4" right here as far as height. But we should be pretty close. We've got this one spot. We go into here an inch or so, drive up, and go in here about an inch to drive down and clear this up and make this so it's not tooled. We should be golden. And so now it's just going to be laying stuff out and getting to work. Cool deal. But if we flogged hard on that, that brake could easily gone down and dish this out even more. Let's clean up and get serious about work. Okay, I'm going to go to 5 3/4 because I want to be 6 inches down. I'm going to set this in at 5 3/4 and I can trim that last little bit off. go exactly to 6, I may get over, and I really don't want to be over, and then where I got to clean stuff up. Okay, I've got a real round, perfect square. I've also got a piece of, a straight edge. I've also got just a piece of 1-inch galvanized from the hardware store. And you can sight down the edge and it's straight enough for anything you're going to cut by hand for 90% of your work. It only costs about, I don't know, $5 or $10 versus spending top dollar money on a fancy ground square or straight edge. So now I've got the red line all the way down. Just going to go and start sawing it in. I'm going to use my small saw because my small saw only goes about 3/4 of an inch before it bumps the body, so I got more control. If I put the big saw on there and I get too deep, that's not what I want right now. And there we've got a line. It goes all the way down. It's pretty straight, a little dip. You look down the line, it's good. If you look down the contour, it looks wonky because the surface is all crooked. But prior to doing this, I stayed up just a little bit, because if you saw straight down, it's very hard to keep your saw blade perfectly plumb or square with a stone, and you end up tipping under, and you'll end up, if you saw this right at 6, you might go even to 6 1/4 by accident. So this should have a straight edge on it, and this should be perfectly plumb, and the bottom, the joint, the bottom on this now should be flat. And now I'm going to just work on wasting this off, and then I'll clean this all up and make this line perfect. Keep working. This is where you'll use different tools for different reasons. Remember I talked about carbide being sharp versus tool steel being tough? Okay, I sawed a bunch of stripes in here. I'm just going to break this in to waste it down to get it close. And for doing pounding work like this, where all you're doing is just busting off stone, don't waste your carbide. It's too expensive. This is cheaper. You can go right down and knock all this out. And then when you've got a good edge, you use your hand shot. Take a whole bunch of it off. Just keep repeating this. We'll get this whole edge knocked down. Try to maintain the integrity of the line that I cut in this depth. Then after we get this roughed into shape, we can get this depth to where we need it to be, chase it with a chisel, break it up from the joint, break it down the top and clean it up. And when we got success on this face, we'll have an idea on how the stone's breaking, so we can work on the mystery sides that are sawed flat that we don't really know how to predict how they're going to break. We're already seeing this grain, so we know what we're doing. There's going to be a lot of stone to bust off here. So just keep working. Okay, this is breaking out pretty good. I'll get close up. I don't think you can see it here because of the shadow. But I sawed in, and when this broke, there's a couple spots here where it broke under a little bit, and then it came back to this stress riser, this open spot. so it didn't go too far. This doesn't matter because I still have to straighten this up. I can still catch that edge. This gives me a good idea on how the stone's breaking, and because this is the rift, it's breaking really well. There was an inclusion here and some other stuff going on, and so that made a knot. That made it break a little funny. Now I'm done near the end. So to control this break, and you'll see me, I may hit my hand. It's difficult when you're in an awkward position. When you cut stone regular, you set stuff up on a crate or a stand or whatever, so you cut it in ideal situations. When you're cutting all weird like this, it's a lot more important to hit your hand and hurt it than it is to mess up the stone, because your hand will pretty much always heal. So, but down here, because I'm on this end, if I start striking it with a handset here to break this, I could have a run out on this end where I don't want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the handset and I'm going to break it in off this corner to relieve it and get rid of some of this stone first, so that there's a hump right here, and then that'll help trap the energy that I'm putting in the brake instead of letting it run wild. Okay, see, that's a nice piece right there. Now I can go right down here, hit it a few times, it should break really well. See that? Now I got a pretty good start on getting this panel down. Now I can saw this in easier. I can saw it down and get it pretty close. Get this squared up. Make sure that my line is true through here. Get that really, really straight. And we'll be able to start working on actually pitching this. See where it pulled under here just a little bit? Maybe not quite a quarter inch, but it's still out here. It had to go under and come up. And so my line is I still got enough room there to get on my line. And we got a lot of stone to break off here. So it's really good. Got a little bit extra here. But just for reference, there's my red pencil line. So I'm still up, because that yellow line, hey, you can't see that for nothing. So I'll mark the red line on the front. We'll get this put together and make it really nice. So I'm going to start working on that. Probably got enough video for this one. So we'll let this go. Call this the end of it. It's 4:30. I think my wife's ready for me to cook dinner, so it's about time. But I hope you saw where I took this. This didn't really sit on there too well, but I started a line to start that stress riser. And the reason I talk to you about the way the stone sounds when it cracks is that the tone changes when I'm hitting this. When you start hitting stuff hard and bull setting, the first few hits, that hammer will come right around and knock you over. And once it starts to sink, once you hear that talk, when it starts to break, you know you're winning. So it's important to know that sound, to know your progress, either to avoid a crack or service a crack, or to create one. Because if you hit it super hard before you got a good crack and you don't have a really good register, then it'll just crush and muddy it up, and it'll it'll wreck your cut. You want it to be well in control, so once you start hearing that crack, boy, then you can really control it. You can hit that thing and make that stone do what you want it to do. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the virtual stone carving apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.